You okay with starting?
Yeah.
Did you want to introduce yourself?
Myself? Wait,
Yes.
weren't you going to introduce yourself?
I thought you. Oh, well, I can definitely do that. This is, it's just weird talking about yourself. Well, hello, listeners. You are listening to the second episode of the Digital Divide podcast. First of all, I want to thank everybody for, and surprisingly, a lot of people gave us feedback and even a piece of fan art. So I mean, kind of shocked when I saw that, Josh. I don't know about you, but uh, that was kind of cool to have everybody chime in, give us some really good advice, really tell us what they liked, which was what I wanted, but also saying maybe you should try something different if you do it this way. So I like the feedback we got, and we're really going to shape it towards uh, the whole purpose of this podcast of focusing on really the generational gap that Josh and I have. So, and applying that to some pretty big topics, but also I think everyday material. So it'll go from tech to, I mean, I would like to think it would go from topics from tech to anything from, let's say, maybe something in the news, but or maybe a concept that is always tossed around that I don't think really people always talk about. So that's the main purpose of this podcast. And we really didn't introduce ourselves. So I'm Justin Fry. It's weird talking about yourself. Um, this is odd. Anyways,
I'm Joshua Charletto, also known as Josh.
yes, Josh.
Yes, and thank all two of you for listening to this podcast. We really appreciate it.
That's really depressing. There was definitely more than two people. I know there's certain people that said, I really love listening to you guys talk about this. But then I had no idea what you guys were talking about when it came to the Mac stuff. And I went, oh, that's great. I'm glad you enjoyed us talking about video games, which it was interesting. Certain people commenting on aspects of the podcast that I would definitely not think they would find appealing. So it was kind of cool.
Yes, all 37 minutes of video games that we covered, and that was definitely unintentional.
Yes, unintentional indeed. But
But yeah, we
yeah,
got a lot of good feedback, and as I was hoping to get some constructive feedback, we got a lot of
yes,
that too, so I'm excited about that. So yeah, let's get started.
yes. So what we'd like to do and what we're going to start doing is kind of segment the podcast. Starting off usually with it, we can either go with a funny piece of news that we randomly come across in our time between podcasts, or it can be a serious news article. To this specific week, and I wouldn't say this specific week, but the previous week, in the past, we'll just say in the past, uh, and this is kind of common knowledge already, but Facebook, amongst all the bad publicity they've been getting recently, decided to announce at their conference a dating service. Now, the, Facebook has done this before, and I don't recall if it was a couple years ago, but um, what better way to say, hey guys, we're stealing your data, and now we're going to help you find and stalk somebody and have you, learn how to date these people by giving them their personal information up. So I don't know how you feel about this, but I just see this being another one of those. Hey guys, this is a great way to meet other people on Facebook, and let's not think about the stealing your information and sharing it with other people. I'm sorry, but let's find the love of your life so you can always think of Facebook as a great thing. So I was very surprised by this.
That is, that's not a very nice way to put it, Justin.
I really don't care, but I mean, I'm glad, and I know people who have found their significant others on like Match.com and on dating websites. So I am all for that. Please use those. They're great sources of ways of connecting with people. I'm not saying that, but I think Facebook shouldn't be doing this right now. They should be still focusing on trying to keep the people that they have, um, and trying to still appeal to newcomers as they get older and they can access Facebook. So I don't know. I just think this is an interesting way to really steer the focus away from the current view of Facebook.
Well, this topic is a big old can of worms that you just opened. I
That's
mean,
fine. It's just something we talk about. I'm not talking about now. I just wanted to say this is the silliest thing I've ever seen. That's it. I'm cutting
well,
it.
no. Now, hold on. Let's break it down, right? So, from a business perspective, this makes complete sense for them and also fits with how they normally, on the public side, act as a company.
Hmm.
This gives them a way to use your data and give you benefits. I'm going to put air quotes around benefits there.
Friends with benefits?
No, bad. so, so they can give you a perceived service for access to your data. That's what Facebook and all the other companies like Google do. So, from a business perspective, this makes complete sense. They can just offer another service basically for what they already do. And in the perception of people who use Facebook, there's the potential that they will see that as just a value add, another thing that they get, or joy, or however you want to perceive it,
Hmm.
to using Facebook. So to me, it's really smart and a really good business move on their part, and really fits the way that they act publicly and as a company. They make decisions like this all the time.
Hmm.
Oh man, do I want to? I don't think we should. We probably shouldn't touch on all the other parts of Facebook. I mean,
No.
I have never trusted Facebook. Facebook has always been the bottom of the trust pile when it comes to online services. I mean, you can simply look at the way they like decisions like this, the way that they make decisions, or at least you can perceive the way they make decisions,
Hmm.
the way the decisions they make, and how they phrase them or spin them or angle them. And there's always something underneath it to me that just doesn't seem right or sit right, which is totally not the way you make decisions usually. But in this particular case, Facebook just has never earned my trust. And that's why when you mentioned some of the recent news with them,
Yeah.
when all that came up, I was not surprised and was more surprised by the fact that other people were so surprised. I've never trusted them, I guess is the right way to put it,
Yeah.
because of the way that they act. And I feel as though that was probably the correct decision.
Well, you keep saying they. I don't. I think you should be saying he. But that's completely fine. I will let that slide. But no, I didn't want to open a can of worms. It was just a interesting caveat from the whole focus that has been happening and will continue to be for quite some time amongst other companies that are having similar news breakout about the dealing of the information that they hold. So no big deal. But you have something that I'm surprised you're wanting to talk about.
Well, before I say that, I actually want to use this as a segue to something else I've wanted to say before.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, but I think this is a good opportunity. I have been seeing a lot of articles recently written, and it's sensationalism in the news. They're trying to get a good story or generate buzz. But it seems like a lot of people don't understand the transaction or the business that's going on between
Mm-hmm.
the user and, say, a company like Facebook or Google or any of the other social media sites. I just want to underline that, and I sound like a broken record because everybody else says this, right? But I just want to underline that nothing is free, and you are not the customer when it comes to Facebook or
Uh-oh.
Google or any of those services. You're not the customer. The
No.
customer are the advertisers. The
Mm.
customers are the advertisers who benefit from the data that Facebook and Google pull from the users. That would be you. So just understand that the business transaction and the way that they make their business decisions is based on the fact that they need to get data from you and sell that data to advertisers. And they will try to put it in any positive light that they possibly can to make it sound like they're giving you something, but you are not the customer. You are the product for their customer. Now, I also want to underline that Facebook, I don't know. I don't work at Facebook, but they seem to go about that business a little bit less. I don't know how to put it. They don't seem to care about the users as much. And again, I don't know how they operate as much as, like, say, Google. Like, I would say Google is a little bit more forthcoming with how they use your data and what they're actually pulling, although not very much more, but a little bit more. And I personally trust Google, not that that should mean anything to anybody, more than Facebook. So just keep that in mind as you're using these services, that they are actually, um, this is the business that is going on in the background.
I just feel like several of our possible listeners just unsubscribed from Facebook with that explanation.
Oh,
Maybe
I
the
highly
less
doubt it.
the less educated. I wouldn't know. I shouldn't say less educated, but less educated in the what you just explained, the business behind Facebook, which is, I think, as you just said, is overlooked, heavily overlooked. So I was actually, when you were talking, checking out how Facebook allows you to see if any of your information was handed out to, one, the Cambridge Analytic, but also anything else. And I actually don't see anything, so I was very happy to see that. And now I have to figure out how I can see more information about it. So very interesting to say. So I'm surprised on your stance, just a little, but hey,
Wait,
that's
which
okay.
part of my stance? Hold on. What? Which
I'm
part of
just
my stance?
I think I'm just more surprised that you're taking it from like a business perspective of understanding that aspect, but still playing with the side of I still don't trust Facebook. So like you're seeing the high ground of saying this is something they have been doing a while and every other company has done. So um, and that they're not the customers, the ad companies or the people looking to put their own ads in are the customers indefinitely. So it's just interesting.
Well, and it's the right way to think about it, in my opinion. And I know it's my opinion, but
Hey.
because you will be more careful with the things that you do or say,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I don't know. But it's just something that I don't want it to take on a serious note here, but I just wanted to point that out because it seems the more people I talk to, the more I understand that people don't seem to understand that business transaction that's happening.
Okay. I just clicked on advertisers you've interacted with, and Leslie Milano for delegate is apparently something I've clicked on. I don't recall clicking on that, nor did I remember clicking on Republicans for the rule of law. So, interesting.
Well, there you
That's,
go.
and that's where it stops.
Okay, so the the news article that I wanted to bring up,
Yes.
uh, apparently I didn't hear this until just today, so I'm behind the times, obviously.
Way to go.
But Ford isn't selling cars anymore. I
Okay.
just want to be really clear before you jump in here, okay? I just want to be
Okay.
really. The car company, Ford, isn't making cars. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Okay. Now my turn. Whew. So the automobile company Ford. Let's get that. Let's just get that straight, because it's not necessarily a car. Yes. So in the U.S. and I think there's some confusion about if it was just the U.S. this was happening or if this was across the board. But as of right now, a news article came out I think a couple weeks ago, or possibly 2 weeks ago, stating that a lot of their sales and their revenue was specifically coming through from the trucks and other vehicles, SUVs specifically too, and that they were going to cut back slash stop selling and slash sorry, not stop selling, stop producing uh, most of their mid-size compact sedans. So that's the
Right, so like they're gonna
Taurus,
keep the Mustang,
right?
and what was the other one?
It's their new economy. I think it was a hybrid. Correct me if I'm wrong. A hybrid slash maybe it was an electric car.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Um, either one of those, but they're focusing on just those two, and then the rest will be where they make most of their money. Like I said, SUVs and trucks. It was a big shock to the automobile industry. Huge shock, but not a shock. I shouldn't say a huge shock, but you can definitely see the market trends, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So other companies are also seeing this. So big companies like Honda and companies like Toyota, they're seeing that the sales are really peaking at the SUV slash truck industry, or truck, not industry, but the need for those vehicles, and the mid-size sedan economy cars, it's starting to dwindle again because of the price of gas and other factors. Now, whether or not you believe that, and whether or not you actually believe in the market trends that are happening, that's to each their own. But that is how it is currently. Now we see this ebb and flow all the time. Perfect example, before 2008, everybody and their mother had an SUV. I just remember that huge impact, that huge influx of, here's these big SUVs. Your sport utility vehicles are better than a van. They make you more manly, or they're not your typical caravan. You can use it to go off roading, etc. So
I like the accent as you're saying that. Keep going.
yeah. Well, it brings me back to like a Dodge commercial where the guy buys a Durango and his wife asks, "Does it have a Hemi?" And he goes, "It's got a Hemi." And then they just keep saying it back and forth. It was a bit ridiculous, but uh, that was before the market crash, and then the ridiculously huge increase in gas prices. So after that, we all went eco, gas mileage, yay, and now we're starting to have that like dwindle a little bit, and Ford pulling the plug really to, I guess, make more money and cut the costs that they have when they're trying to forcefully sell these vehicles. Now, I'm no expert, so correct me, those who are listening, if I'm wrong about their strategy. But it doesn't surprise me. I'm sure we'll see other companies scale back, but I don't think scale back to this degree. This was super shocking because Ford makes the Focus, Fiesta, Taurus, and those are really the main uh, the three sedans that they're using, other than the coupes like the Ford Mustang. And so I was really surprised to see that in the Fusion. Sorry, I can't believe I forgot of the Fusion. So I was really surprised about that. The Fusion was a huge hit when it came out in the early 2000s, and that was like another line of the sedans. So uh, I'm surprised they're getting rid of that. I'm surprised, but not surprised that they're sticking with the Mustang. But we'll see how it goes, and I'm a little skeptical that this will last, but we'll see.
I just think I, of course, know more than I let on with the first initial mention of this articles or set of articles that I
You
read this morning about
set
it.
me up.
I wanted to make it sound dramatic.
Oh,
But, but, I mean, it makes sense in a lot of ways. I can see it, and I read some articles about the trends in SUVs again because gas prices, something, something, blah. But at
mm-hmm.
the same time, it's just shocking to me because growing up, always every car company has had the fleet of sedans and then the trucks and now the SUVs in between, kind of, sort of. It's just weird. It's so weird that they're selling just that subset of cars and
Mm.
that they scaled back as far as they did. I think you're right. I think we're probably going to see a lot of car companies scaling back, but just the degree to which they did so just
Yeah,
is crazy, but interesting. I
yeah.
hope it
Well,
works out for them.
one thing I want to clarify: it is only North America that they're doing this, because
Yeah, that's what I read.
one of our colleagues, who may or may not be from a European country, was specifically pointing out the fact that in Europe, a lot of the cars that are manufactured, or Ford manufactures and sells, are really the compact, smaller sedan cars. They don't sell the pickup trucks in Europe. They're not
Yes.
selling that. So
And why is that, Justin?
because in Europe they have small streets, then
Yes.
no one really wants to be driving around a pickup truck and trying to park it or parallel park it in a very tight corner in an old city. So
There's no
uh,
room. There is no way you can get those cars in a lot
no,
of the cities, especially down
yeah,
there.
uh, in Germany when I saw the Hummer 2 sitting outside someone's house,
That's
surrounded
shocking.
by
I
a
can't believe you
bunch
even saw
of,
that.
yeah, it was bright yellow too. The little tiny Golfs and little tiny like A4s with the combis or the hatchbacks were all shoved around it. This big, huge behemoth of a gas guzzler, just like an eyesore, sitting in the middle of this beautiful street. It was just made no sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of smaller cars. I mean, even to the point where I'm going to try and say this right or butcher it, go on holiday,
Oh, hey, there you
where
go.
they take their small sedans or crossovers, and they hook up their trailers to that. So,
Yeah,
different place over there,
they
wherever
call
there may
that,
be.
shoot, what is that called? It's not just holiday, but they call it something else.
I don't know.
Shoot, it's gonna bug me. We're gonna have some quote real time follow up possibly. uh, oh my god.
Oh goodness. All
Okay.
right. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty shocking. So,
Yeah. So should we jump into what would be our next segment, which is typically going to be the main topic? So we'll try and from a list of things that we always talk about offline, pick from a list that we can apply the concept of the digital divide or the generational gap between Josh and I. So this one I particularly am really excited to talk about. Did you want me to give you the 411 on this, Josh? Or do you...
yeah, I think so because I have like 9 different directions I could see this particular topic going,
Okay.
and like 4 or 5 different prepared statements. so, so I would like you to preface this topic and see where it goes. That would
Okay.
be the best, I think.
Perfect. So, Josh has joined the Apple universe uh, in a long, long time far away the galaxy. Uh, I would say at the heyday of when Jobs came back from being booted. Am I correct, Josh?
Yes, but first explain who Steve Jobs is.
People, if they're listening to this podcast and don't know who Steve Jobs, I'm just kidding. Steve Jobs, you know, former and unfortunately deceased founder, co-founder slash guru slash uh, aficionado of wearing black turtlenecks for their presentations at big conferences. Anyways, he was a wonderful man who really steered Apple in the right direction and really brought it to I don't know. I mean, he is the Steve Jobs. I don't know how to explain Steve Jobs to people.
Okay, down boy,
Google him.
you're doing it wrong. Steve Jobs is the essence of Apple, and yet I would not say that he is a wonderful man. In fact, there have been several reports, who knows, because I have never met him myself or even know anybody who knew him, that he was actually not a wonderful man and very terrible to people, but he certainly ran Apple the way that he wanted to run it and ran it in a very specific way. And because of that, maybe, or maybe because they had a certain team at the time, but they made a lot of very interesting products while he was around. And yes, he's the late Steve Jobs.
I would like to say we should cut out everything I just said because I scrambled to explain
I
somebody
know I put you on
who
the spot.
I don't know other than being for someone who uses Apple products. When I joined the Apple universe, it was after his death, unfortunately. So I never received the uh, the experience of Steve Jobs. So
And boy, what an experience it was.
yeah, so that's the whole point of that is this topic is going to be playing off of how Josh came in earlier, obviously, than I did, and then I just recently, within I'd say about 2014, fully and not even fully, but really just put myself into Apple by buying my MacBook Pro. So always had a iPhone since the 3G came out. My dad came home on my 16th birthday and said, "You want an iPhone?" And I said, "Sure, I guess." And it started
Oh
from
my
there.
god. Your dad came home on your 16th birthday and asked if you wanted an iPhone?
Yes, I would. I didn't even want it. I was just happy to get my license.
I need a minute, hold on. Okay, I feel better. Just a
Perfect.
couple breaths there.
Well, after you've taken your asthma, your inhaler, sorry, oh my god. You've taken your inhaler, uh, or your pills, or whatever you need in your age. Anyways, uh, yeah, so we're trying to play off the fact that we're coming from two different aspects of where this can go. So let me introduce this topic because we're just beating around the bush. Those of you who have used iFixit before, this might ring a bell, but the idea of device repairability, Apple specifically, but not just Apple, as far as I know, and for as long as I know, has never really produced uh, user manuals how to repair the products, nor have they really really advertised, "Hey, would you're more than welcome to go to any of these third-party companies to buy spare parts or replacement parts."
Incorrect.
Okay, explain.
So, in the heyday of Apple,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is, so I'm going to stop saying that.
Okay, I guess that's up for interpretation.
Yeah, right. In earlier days of Apple and their computers, when they were still Apple Computer,
Mm-hmm.
it actually was way more user repairable and more user modified capable, I should say, I guess. Uh, they actually encouraged that. So for a while, you could actually build an Apple computer out of parts yourself, and I know a couple of people who actually did that. And they did not have any Apple stores whatsoever, and really the only way to buy, sell, and repair Apple products was through third parties. So there was no such thing as a first party Apple store. And Apple would give a lot of incentives to people who would build Apple stores, not Apple as in the trademark named Apple, but Apple as in Apple service provider, Apple training, Apple repair center. They were all authorized Apple dealers and repair centers. So
Interesting.
early on, there were no Apple stores. Apple sold all their products through authorized resellers and authorized VARs. That's a value add reseller.
Hmm.
And they also only repaired through Apple authorized repair centers. And then many of those offered training. So when it started out, they had no retail presence. And nobody did. I mean, I think I can remember back to maybe the Gateway store. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
But so yeah, I really think that they were the only ones who later came out with retail presence. But that was down the line, and early on, Apple had set it up so that it was only third parties, and that was the same way for all PC companies, if you can call them that. They they didn't have their own retail presence. They just sold their products through other companies like Micro Center or Best Buy or places like that.
Right.
Um, so that's how it started out. And the beige computers that Apple used to produce after the Lisa and the Apple II. See, and that's all fuzzy for me because I was not a part of all that. That was earlier than me. But after that, they had the beige computers. I think that was the Scully time period, who was their CEO at the time after Steve Jobs was ousted. I'm messing all this up, so somebody's going to have to correct me. But
That's fine.
basically,
You're speaking
Steve
in
Jobs was
tongues.
ousted, and they had a bunch of beige Apple computers. You could piece those together yourself and make a computer. And also, you could go to the Apple authorized resellers and purchase parts and build them and so on and so forth. Even well into, they started getting into the G3 and G4 era, and even into the G5, you could still change RAM, and in the G3s, you could actually change out CPUs. So there was a lot of encouragement of opening your own computer and doing your own stuff, even well into the G3 era, I would
Hmm.
say.
I did not know that. That's surprising to me.
Yeah, and that's why they're such a fascinating company because they have changed so much and done so many different things and pushed the envelope in so many ways, sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad ways.
Yeah.
But they're fascinating to think about and study because they are such a different company than, no pun intended, than many other companies. So
How's that a pun?
think different, Justin. Come on, are you even an Apple person at all? My goodness gracious.
Ah, see, that blew over me. That's unfortunate.
That was
S-
their that was
I,
their whole campaign for a long time. Think different.
yeah, so you can see how this is definitely different for me. I did not realize that, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this is it's not just Apple, but there are other companies that do this, and the idea about is it is it really okay for a company to essentially restrict whether or not it's patented or they have legal, maybe if they do have legal matters or maybe if they don't have legal matters behind it, but essentially force the customer to go to Apple directly or go to, for example, another company. Like I have to bring my Chevy truck to a Chevy dealer to receive the specific type of repair that they get to charge with a huge premium because I can only go somewhere. That really, to me, asks the question: one, is it morally right? But two, um, like, what does that do to the customer base? And taking it for someone who's come into Apple after they've obviously tried this out already, when they gave the ability, as you just said, and there was possible uh, modular. Is that a word? Modularity. You essentially,
Modular, yes. Good
yeah,
job.
but I'm trying modularity.
Speak.
No, I'm trying to speak modularity. But essentially, it was the modular PC or Mac. Uh, After that has been changed, now we're back to this. You can only have it repaired here. How does it make the customer feel? I personally, this is where it gets me. I look at it as I have the right to go to a third party and have that repaired, or maybe buy a, as I already understand, maybe a worse or lesser engineered battery or a device or screen. You, I can go on like a piece of equipment that is an OEM. It's relatively cheap and it does the job. I don't want to have to go somewhere to go pay an arm and a leg just to replace a piece of my in my electronic device or vehicle uh, because I'm forced to do that. That to me just doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to explain this other than a company shouldn't force their customer to essentially only use their patent or their products and only use their uh, replacement devices. That just to me baffles me because we have this world of now where we have third party companies making third party devices or replacement pieces, and it's like a thriving market. I mean, you look at it and I can go buy something for $5 to replace something on my car, or I can go somewhere and go get something to replace the. I'm trying to think of a better example. Um, you gotta help me out, Josh. I'm trying to think of something.
Parts of this podcast have been dramatized for effect.
Yes, but why can't I think of a replacement piece? I guess like if I wanted to replace my light bulbs in my car or replace the headlights in my car, I don't have to go to OEM or go to Dodge and get the headlights directly from them. I can go to carid.com, which is not a sponsor of this podcast, to buy these these third party replacement lenses. That to me is really a plus for the customer. But watching people or companies like Apple and big automobile companies try to sue essentially those companies providing customers with those devices, it kind of baffles me and sends a bad message.
Are you done?
Yeah, sorry.
You're like all over the map. How am I going to respond to any of that yet?
All right, let's focus on.
Okay, so let's back up. Let's go from the bottom up and let's
Mhm.
take it. So, okay, you're saying that they are suing people for building Are you talking about Hackintoshes?
No,
Okay.
Apple. If we're talking specifically about
Let's talk about
Apple,
Apple, right?
uh, suing maybe not. Recently, there's an article, and for whatever reason, it's not in my notes, but I swear to God, it's real.
I
There's a
promise we prepare for these
Yes,
podcasts. I
exactly.
swear.
There was a recent article where, and we'll add it in, but where Apple attempted to sue a replacement shop or a third-party replacement shop, and they lost.
Okay.
So they
Yeah, that
didn't
makes
win.
sense. So, I don't know what story you're referring to,
I'm
but
looking it up now.
okay, great. That's wonderful. But it depends on when and where they're suing and for what, and that's where all this gets steeped into the lore and the mythos and the legends and the rumors. And some of them, like you're bringing up, are justified and worth it and actually have use because Apple does do some things that are ridiculous. And depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer as to how much those things are ridiculous or how many things are ridiculous. But you can't deny that they do some things that are kind of crazy or ridiculous. With that said, let's let's go back then 9 steps to the beginning and talk about um, you're talking about companies basically sealing the box that you buy from them
Yes.
and not allowing the user to make changes to that box
Hmm.
versus being able to go in and tinker with it or do things or buy third party parts to replace them yourself.
Yes.
So, this is where I kind of differ, I think, from a lot of tech people on a lot of this and the way I think about it. And maybe this is good and maybe it's bad. And maybe I just lost one of the two people listening to the podcast when I say all this.
Mm.
But to me, if you are thinking that way, and we'll get farther down the line here, Justin, because I know that you are an Apple person for the most part,
Yes.
Mr. Google Apps. Um, to me, if you're thinking that way and you're worried about specs, if you're worried about who put what card in where or which chips are on the board, or if you're worried about my battery's dying, why can't I replace it myself? I know I could do it. You're already past the point, I would say, of being an Apple person. And that's not to say that it's better or worse or good or bad. It's just different. Like
Hmm.
you, obviously, and I think this way too. I want to know what's underneath it. I want to know what's behind it. I want to know what makes it tick. That's how I normally operate.
Right.
And I think a lot of, I don't have a better word, so I'm going to use this term, geek people who are
Okay.
into computers,
You offended nerds.
yeah, or nerds, or whomever you want to call them, or what term you want to use. I think a lot of them like to get into the weeds and really tinker with things and enjoy seeing what ticks underneath inside the box. That is exactly opposed to what Apple wants you to do. Whether or
Right.
not that's good or bad, I'm not going to debate that. But once you're debating about swapping out parts,
Hmm.
you're not Apple's customer. And I'm not saying that you can't have Apple products. I love swapping out parts. I used to repair Apple products. I love building computers. I also love all my Apple products. So, I mean, it's not that you shouldn't be using Apple products if you know how all that works and want to swap it out. But my point is that if that's your major concern or something that you think about constantly, it might be worth thinking about some other device that allows that for that to happen.
Hmm.
So I guess that's one part of it. The other part of it is I feel like, and maybe this is just me, but Apple gives me a window into the world that I hope technology goes to. And that's not to say that they're doing it right or that they have made it that world yet, but I want my computers and software and I want my devices to be appliance level. And yes, I love tinkering, and yes, I enjoy building things, but I want the tools that I use to build those things or the tools that I use to tinker with other things to be appliance level. And that means that I don't have to do anything to use it. I don't have to think to use it. I don't even have to basically tell it what I want it to do, which is the way out there sci-fi thing to think about.
Yeah.
I just want it to do the things without me thinking about it, and I just want it to work, which used to be the old Steve Jobs quote, "It just works."
Hmm.
Um, so the point that I'm poorly trying to make is that Apple wants it to be a magic box, and whether or not it is or isn't, or whether or not you think about it that way or not, that's what they want. And they build their products and really have always tried to build their products to be the magic box. You buy this box and it will do these cool things for you and you will have fun. That's what they want you to do. And if you're thinking, well, what's underneath the box and how do I make the box something different or how do I change the box, you might be in a different category and maybe not Apple's core customer.
Okay. Can I chime in?
Sure,
So
please.
I don't want to focus specifically on Apple for this topic. It's a start, and that's why I wanted to kind of touch base on that because I completely understand and completely get it that if I'm a customer expecting that I can either replace a part or maybe upgrade a part for an Apple device, I might not be the actual customer that Apple's looking for, or nor should I be the customer looking for Apple. I get that completely,
Sure.
but to me, I take that same logic and I apply it to people like farmers who have combines, have these huge pieces of equipment that are really expensive, and tractors as well that need occasionally to have pieces replaced. The problem with that is that those same people now have to go to like John Deere and have those parts replaced, and they get really expensive. However, they introduce third-party companies to create third-party slash non-OEM parts for these farmers who can then go to these repair shops or buy from an online retailer these these pieces and replace them. Uh, the fact that this, and we're going to call it, not, it's not coined by us, the right to repair, we're essentially, if we're making it not a monopoly, but essentially forcing the customer to go with the retailer or the authorized retailer slash Apple slash John Deere, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you're putting your customer in a bad spot. And now, what I'm trying to get at is
I see what you're getting at, and I like it. I like where you're taking that because you're not wrong, but you're not right.
right. Wait, hold on.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, and you're right. Let's take the combine John Deere, right? So
Yeah,
you go buy a combine, and you need it to do X, Y, and Z farmer things
sure.
that I can't name because I'm not a farmer. And then you take it out in the fields, it breaks down, you have the choice to take it to John Deere for 2 weeks while they repair it, or you're going to actually be a professional farmer and go to the professional farmer store and buy professional farmer parts and professionally fix the combine yourself.
Hmm.
That makes sense to me. And I think that's where probably the distinction that maybe people don't understand, and I'm going to bring it back to Apple for a second
Sure.
because that's where you started it.
Yeah.
They are a consumer computer company. So that means that Aunt Millie buys a computer, I think she should buy an Apple product. And this is kind of where I was pointing before poorly and saying a lot of things in a big circle. Um, it, if you know how to build computers, build some computers, man. Like, holy cow, you're a pro.
Hmm.
Or even if you're an amateur, not only is that probably fun, but also you can probably build what you want and make it neat. Whereas Aunt Millie is going to go to the store and have some guy tell her that she needs uh, an Intel Core i7 processor with 32 gigabytes of RAM, and you see what I'm getting at?
All
Like
the
she's no
graphics.
right, and she needs to send email and maybe get onto Facebook.
Yeah.
Not previous conversation notwithstanding. So the point is that Aunt Millie is no pro, and she needs to just get emails about her grandchildren, um, and see pictures. Whereas the professionals who build, say, pro audio rigs or
Sure.
pro video rigs, they're
Yeah.
going to go with a different computer or choose something different that they can throw cards into, that they can throw RAM into, that they can build to spec because they're professionals.
Hmm.
And I think that's where the distinction comes in. I don't agree with the quote right to repair end quote
Oh
because
my.
when you're buying the product,
Mm-hmm.
when you're buying the product, you're making the choice to what product you are buying. And that's not to say that you don't own the product, you bought the product, but the product is built in such a way that it maybe doesn't lend itself to that type of repair. Now, I don't agree with that necessarily 100% on computers because computers are really, in a lot of ways, easy to compare with the exception of Apple's,
Mm-hmm.
and we can debate that later. But take the phones, right? Obviously, replacing a battery on a phone is no big deal if it's built to be consumer replaceable.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of advantage and a lot of capability that comes out of integrating a battery in a phone, and Apple has taken advantage of that over the years and been able to build products that take advantage of that and continually will do so. So, does that mean then that the customer has the right to do whatever they want with their product that they purchased. But
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that they have the expertise to repair the device in such a way that it would allow it to continue to work. They're no professional. They don't know what they're doing
Right.
with the device that was built by Apple to very specific specifications. And you see a lot of the companies going this way, and it may not just be about making the best device possible. Although I would argue that in all the companies' respects, I think that's what they're trying to do. But
Yeah.
I'm also a hopeless optimist. Uh, but it also allows them to kind of control who can get into their devices and who is repairing them and what parts are going in them to give a certain level of performance from the device that's being repaired. So, I mean, there's a lot here, and I get what you're trying to say. Yes, you're a farmer in a field, you have a combine, you need to repair the combine.
Yeah.
That's your livelihood, but we're not talking about your livelihood when Aunt Millie needs to send pictures to, her grandkids or whatever.
Okay.
Um, there is a distinction there. Now, where that line is, that's where it gets fuzzy and weird and but that's why when we talk about stuff like this, it needs to be broken down because there's so many different moving parts to something like this. And each company, I would say, and this goes back to the Facebook thing before, each company has a different goal with how they make profit and also has a different way of going about that. And some companies like Samsung choose to build their phones in certain ways and to market their phones in certain ways. And some companies like Apple build their phones in certain ways and market their phones in certain ways. There's no right or wrong necessarily with some of that,
Mm-hmm.
although there can be moral issues, but I wouldn't say how they're marketing or how they're building their phones is morally right or wrong necessarily, unless they're hurting people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring up the Samsung hurting people,
Oh my God.
but
Too soon.
but do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get it, and I think the reason why I also brought this whole topic up is because a lot of my generation, unfortunately, I have to associate myself with that, but they're the real push behind this. The right to repair. There's a lot of movement behind this idea of giving the consumer essentially more rights to look elsewhere. And so apparently there's legislation that's being not passed but has been brought to state legislature that's sitting, I'm sure, on the floor and is being lobbied against and for. And something shocking to me is uh, companies like Apple and John Deere were ultimately sending out um, lobbyists to move against the bill, and so trying to convince others, the state legislature, representatives, etc., to vote against it. And to me, that just rubs me the wrong way. One, being someone who formerly was in politics. It's a fact that I hate that it always becomes this lobbying of a big company with lots of money can pour it into a activist group slash lobbyist group to basically fight in their name and fight in their best interest. And sometimes I wonder if that's really what they're looking for is, and when I mean they, I mean Apple, larger companies fighting in the best interest to keep their company alive and make the money off of putting the customers to really focus on them for the repairability of their devices rather than elsewhere. So,
See, and that's I have I. You always got to bring it political, Justin. Goodness gracious,
oh man, now the dinner
that is a big
table,
can of worms, and I'm going to put it over here on this shelf.
and it's gone.
Um, and it's gone. So I don't. That's where I have a problem with the word right
Mm-hmm.
because that there are really important reasons to use that word in
Yeah.
some of those respects, and I don't think that this really hits on some of those. What I think though is that there is something to be said about giving that power to the customer base of a company. But I would also argue that that's more about the company's strategy
Mm-hmm.
and what they plan to do and who their customers are, rather than always making everything for each consumer to be repairable. So it's such a gray area in some ways to me because I see what you're trying to say, and I'm not arguing against allowing third parties for competition so that you're not paying exorbitant prices on repair bills for devices that we use every day, because I think that should happen. Um, but I also am not saying that every device or product should have the ability to be repaired, because I don't think that that's necessarily always going to work out for everybody involved. So I don't know. There's a lot there, and I'm not even sure I'm making sense at this
No,
point.
you are. You're definitely because I didn't want. We don't always want to agree. Trust me. I love agreeing with people, but I also love more to disagree because it's funny to. It's fun, not funny, to listen to other people's really their opinions and what they're backing their opinions with to make them facts essentially. So uh, I I I'm glad that this was a conversation that led two different ways and I like to think that I'm taking it from the aspect of my generation really is well, wrongfully maybe, but always trying to find there's a right to blank. There's always a right of something, whether or not it's actually constitutionally backed up. That's a different story. But uh, this is
Oh
just
boy.
like one of those other movements that I I, I dove into and fell into this huge rabbit hole that just made me start thinking about like why the heck do I have to do this or how come I can't just use iFixit as my go-to for everything? So I don't know. That's just I guess where I stand. So thank you for that conversation. I enjoyed it.
Sure. I think the bottom line is that there should be choice. And that doesn't mean that every company should give you choice,
Yeah.
but that means that there should always be choice in what company you choose to buy your products from.
Yeah.
And that's why I like Apple in a lot of ways, but I wish more companies would come up to compete against them on a lot of respects, because not only do they operate best when they're being competed with, but
Correct.
also there are a lot of other different ways to think about products and how to market them and how to bring them to communities and people.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of interesting ideas that could be brought to, especially the technology industry, and different ways to go about that. So I would love to see more companies take on more ideas like that. I think there was a phone, I forgot who made it, but a modular phone where you could take each piece apart and put it back together differently, or use different pieces from other people's phones. And maybe it was a extreme example, but I thought it was a really cool idea. And that's just an example of what I'm trying to say, which is that there should be choice, there should be new ideas, there should be other people trying different things instead of always just aping what Apple does or doesn't do, or you know responding to them blaze your own path, make your own product, make cool stuff. I want to buy it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think you're talking about the Moto Z, maybe, or
yeah, I
the
think so. That sounds
Nokia.
right.
Nokia had some weird puzzle phone they were trying to work back in 2014, something like that. Project Aria. I know what you're talking about. It was a while ago, and it definitely didn't pan out. So clearly,
Yeah.
but cool. Thank you for that. I wanted to specifically say that if you're trying to find ways to find third party replacement parts slash third party enhancements, you probably shouldn't have bought that product. Maybe. That's why I bought my Apple or my MacBook Pro, because I didn't want to deal with that anymore. So I just said, please work, and now it works. So that's my 2 cents.
Interesting.
So, Josh, I have a question.
Oh boy.
Are you comfortable with ending this with a rant session about recent news about cancellation of a specific series?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
Do enlighten me,
Okay.
Justin.
So I want to let everybody know I love sci-fi. I love,
What?
yeah,
No.
right. So within 3 days, 4 days, possibly.
Wait a minute. Pause.
What?
You love sci-fi the genre
The
or
genre.
sci-fi SYFY as in the channel?
Oh, good clarification. The genre, but also the channel. Great, great channel. Also, great B movies come out of that channel. Anyways, now you've got me talking about something different. So recently, for those who may not watch The Expanse, that's on Sci-Fi right now, they just announced that Sci-Fi will not be picking it up for the next season. Um, Not necessarily in the middle of the season, but a few episodes into season 3, I believe we're in right now. So my problem is this. Also, Timeless, another show I watch that's on NBC, I think. NBC? Yes. Um, Not necessarily sci-fi, but regardless, my problem is this whole cancellation or announcing that we're going to cancel the series in the middle of a season. It like blows my mind and really, really aggravates me, because I will start to enjoy something. I'll be like, yes, season 3, season 4 of said series, and I'm totally into it. I'm like, I can't wait for the next episode, and then only to receive this great news that, hey, you know that show you're really really into, and we're about like 4 episodes into the season. Yeah, so at the end of the season, we're actually not going to pick this series up. We're actually going to tell you guys right now that, hey, we're not picking up the next season. Like, why? You're ruining the experience for me. I am so excited about watching something. Now all I can think about is, this is the second to last episode. This is the last episode. It sucks. And now we're in a phase of our, I guess, in a world now where Netflix and other streaming companies will pick, you know, pretty popular TV series up that are airing on cable, and adding it to Netflix, because of they see the need and the return on investment, I'm sure. But still, that doesn't make it better for me when I unfortunately get so attached to something, and then only to be let down and send down a spiral of depression of waiting, or maybe being stuck with a cliffhanger at the end of the season. So it just really, to me, makes no sense. And I wanted to say one more thing. For those of you who watched Last Man Standing, thank God it's coming back. I'm so excited to finally have that back. Thank you, Fox, for picking that back up. I can't wait for the next season. So that was
You're
my.
so dramatic about stuff. I mean, for goodness sake, they're ruining the experience from announcing something. I
Listen,
mean,
yes, it's my generation. We're over dramatic about everything.
well, knock it off. It's annoying.
Ah, good. I'm glad I have annoyed you. That is my main goal.
It is a little disappointing,
Hmm.
though not world breaking, that they did cancel The Expanse. Though, if I may say, if you're into The Expanse, just read the books. They're so good. The
Yes.
books are so good. And by the way, last time we had an episode, I was on book 2. I would like to point out that I am now 3/4 of the way through book four.
It's about dang time.
It is a great series of books. If you're not into reading, yes, it's disappointing that they're canceling the series, the show. I think they really nailed a lot of that show,
Yeah.
and it was fantastic. But I mean, I'm already reading articles that possibly Netflix is
Oh
going to
yeah.
pick it up, so I have no worry there. And also, I think they dropped it because of how expensive it was to produce, and that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of really good special effects in that show, so unlike the old sci-fi of old where they made these B shows that were so terrible that I couldn't even watch them. Um, yeah, disappointing. Not world breaking, disappointing.
Yeah, it was definitely like anticlimactic. I expected you to be a little more frustrated, but okay, I guess we'll
Well,
just
that's
go
the
with it.
difference 10 years makes apparently because I
Uh,
don't get bent out of shape on stupid crap.
I just get emotionally invested. Sometimes you just that's the little things in life, and little things could be a TV series or a book. I don't know. You never know. They got to figure something out to complain about, so I might as well figure
Yeah,
something like
until you've
this.
been waiting 10 years for the next Game of Thrones book, I don't think you have anything to complain about.
Don't worry, it'll come out next year. Too
Okay,
soon.
well, I would like to rant about something very similar.
Okay, please.
What is with all the TV shows and their mid-season breaks?
Oh
Who
God.
allowed this, for goodness sake? I certainly did not sign up for this, and I don't like the fact that you have to wait a whole season to get to the show, and then what? They take 2 weeks off, or sometimes 3 weeks, and it's like, why? Why are you doing this? You, it's supposed to be like school. You're in session, do the show, and then have the finale, and then we'll wait again. That's the contract that I signed in my head. So that's how it should go.
I I don't know where that started from. I don't know if that was. I feel like the first time I experienced that was through Walking Dead. Maybe I don't remember. Maybe something else. But yeah, that whole
I'm not going to
mid-season.
single any shows out because they all do it now,
I'm not.
which
Yeah.
doesn't make it okay. For all the people that aren't listening to this right now, it doesn't make it okay. So keep working and keep making the show for goodness sake so I can enjoy it.
Yes.
Because my enjoyment is clearly the most important thing.
So,
That's all I'm going to say.
and on that note, let's go ahead and shamefully plug or shamelessly plug our Twitter account that we have one solid tweet right now. You can find us at Digital Divide PC on Twitter, or you can actually take a look at our website www.digitaldividepodcast.com. You can check out most of our episodes that we posted directly there, but also you can find us through most podcasting managers slash applications. So you should be able to see us in iTunes, Overcast, and there's a few apps that we're just clarifying that you can see us in. But last time I checked, most podcasting mediums, we'll call them, you can actually subscribe to our show, download an episode, share it with friends. Don't share it with your grandmother or grandfather, possibly. They might not understand. I don't know. Is that another digital divide that we would have to add?
God, you're so ageist. Knock it off.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
and we invite you, if you have comments, to please tweet the show or tweet either of us, or you can go to the show site and actually leave comments there as well.
Are you comfortable giving out our Twitter handles?
Oh, sure. I'm at J Charletto
And
on
I'm
Twitter.
and I'm at Justin Fry 121. Also in our summary in the Digital Divide podcast Twitter. So if you can't find it or don't understand how we how can't understand how I speak, go ahead and you'll find it there. Because
Or
I
don't speak.
or don't speak or listen. I don't care. You can take a gander at our Twitter, and yeah,
Okay. Well, great.
thanks
Well, thanks again, Justin.
thanks again, Josh, and thanks guys for listening. We look forward to the next episode.